Hello and welcome to How to Level Up Fast, and we've got the Mage edition today. So Mage, of course, interesting class, and this is obviously Control Mage. So what am I thinking about the Control Mage? Well, Doomsday is obviously pretty important. It's a very it's actually become, I've noticed in the last expansion, it's become actually quite a common in a lot of different decks, but it's obviously a very good way just to clear the early board. And early game, I think the best things to think about obviously going to be Novice Engineer and Loot Hoarder. They're ideal. One of the most important things, though, obviously with this type of deck is you want to always keep you want to make sure, for one thing, you have to keep the Ice Lancers, and you really want to keep both Frostbots if you can. Although thing is, when you're trying to remove things early game, I like to hold on to an ice barrier as well. You want to make sure that your ice barriers are getting utilised. You don't want to be in a position where you've got no health and you're just using ice blocks just to stay alive. You really want those ice barriers to get some utility early game. So I'd like to place the ice barrier first, not worry about the ice block until about 6 or 7, turn 6 or 7. I like to also throw out the Forgotten Torch to clear maybe some difficult minions early game. But really it's all about accruing cards so that at the end game you can really do some very powerful stuff. And like I've done before, there's an interesting example is that sometimes when you're facing Warlock, especially if you're against a Reno deck, it's actually quite interesting against a Reno deck. Because what you can actually do against a Reno deck is if you just fireball the face, and you get some pretty decent damage on the face. Even if you're just pinging them a little bit with your smaller minions like your Loot Hoarder, your Novice Engineer, and your Acolytes of Pain, you can get them low enough down to actually get for them to do Reno. What you can do is, assuming that you've done some control as well with Blizzard and Flame Strike and Frost Nova, what you can actually do, which is quite interesting, is you can then immediately after they've Renoed, you can Alexstrasza, and you should, and then what will happen is you do the Alexstrasza, and then the next turn what you'll be able to do, you'll already have the ice block out. So whatever the situation, as long as you've got, for instance, there's all sorts of things you can do, because you're going to get the stronger torch, the roaring torch, isn't it? Yeah, roaring torch. Yeah, it's a simple thing. The roaring torch does 6. So you can imagine the sort of combos you'll be able to get with that afterwards. So you put Thanos down, you're going to get 7 on the Forgotten Torch, and then you're going to get further 4, that's 11, then another one maybe 15, and then 20, 25. So you can see that the damage really adds up on the final, on the obvious. What do they call it? Was it OTK? Is OTK the thing? I thought OTK meant one turn kill. I'm not sure if that's what it actually means. I was just thinking about what it might mean, because I only really hear the acronym, but I don't hear the not the acronym. The acronym, the synonym and antonym. Yeah, I guess you could probably say abbreviation. But anyway, the point is, some a lot of pretty good stuff. Thurisan is one I like to keep in any deck, which is when you're involved in getting a big finish like this. I just like to hold on to Thurisan because the early game is not going to be affected too much, really, by Thurisan being there. But yeah, another very interesting play you can do is Archmage into Frost Nova. So it immediately gets you a fireball, and immediately means that they can't do anything, unless So this can be good against a very a shaman, a heavy shaman board, or maybe even like an Enzoth board, which is quite an interesting one. But you have to use the Frost Novas very carefully. If there's less than 2 minions, unless it's like ridiculous and you're obviously going to win, really you need to have multiple minions out for Frost Nova to get the full effect of Frost Nova. Thanos, again, you don't really. This really is not really for any. I don't know. You can't do it for card draw. The thing is, card draw is such a critical part of it, because you really want to be getting as many cards as you can, as quickly as you can. Fireball is probably the least likely used in the finishing combo. fireballs, really you do need to use the fireballs to actually take out their minions to avoid it getting ridiculous. But you have to say, look, what is the attack value of their minions? If it's 2 or less, then is it worth taking a bit of damage? Especially if you've got an ice barrier out, it may well be worth taking a bit of damage there, because it's not going to do much. Obviously, if they're throwing down 5, 6s or or very, very powerful minions, you're going to want to do something about it. But don't just. For instance, I did take the 7/7 flame wreath thingy. I have taken that to the face, and I still easily won, because as long as you're looking at it's very important to constantly look at how much mana you've got here, because it's just obvious. Arcane Intellect, obviously, pretty useful to do. It can be useful, especially if you get it down to 2 mana with Tharisan as well. But yeah, if you've got like 20 health and you've got like an ice barrier on the board, you can start thinking less about their game, and that's the thing. You have to think less. It's the sort of thing that as the game goes on, you think less about their game and more about how you're actually going to win. But yeah, you don't really want to be using Frostbolt, but if it is absolute necessity, you can use 1 Frostbolt. But you do not want this to be for freezing. It has to be for damage. The Ice Lance. It's the critical card, really, Ice Lance, just because of that 10 damage for 2 mana with the Thalnos. But yeah, but obviously there are other routes as well. If you do want to, for instance, you can get a very strong play. This is assuming no Reno and no massive. Obviously it's Paladin, you may get massive kind of healing. But again, if you're thinking you're playing a deck where there's going to be massive healing, you need to make it. You need to, in a sense, it's almost like it's kind of like a bit of a bluff in that you need to just throw everything you've got, and even if you've got nothing left, you can maybe force a huge heal, and that will actually allow you to draw more cards. And then when you actually do go, and then when you actually do have enough, you'll be able to. They won't have the heal left. So that's the thing. Obviously, if they, the 0 cost Paladin card is pretty powerful. They can do that twice. You don't really want to be in that situation. It's probably not a good one. But yeah, Acolyte Pain is pretty useful. Picking your own Acolyte is something which, it's definitely got some value to it. Ideally, though, you want it, if you could take out a 2/1 with that, that's really pretty handy. You get 2 cards out of the Acolyte is pretty good. Blizzard and Flamestrike can actually work very nicely after each other. And often there's a thing that it's one thing that's not often very nice to do, and which is in general for a lot of different decks, is to play cards when you've got 1 mana too many for them. So you play 3 mana cost when you've got 4 mana. That way you can actually you can keep up a certain kind of tempo, but without but with the advantage being that you are playing a little bit almost behind. It's not. In a control deck, I suppose there's not that curve, but you have to think you are still playing in the game. There will be a curve to the game in general. So playing like a 3 cost on turn 4 or whatever can be useful. The coin can also be quite useful if you go second. But yeah, Pyroblast can be useful either as a finisher if you've done a very powerful combo before, or Pyroblast can be if you get, for instance, say you've got a Warlock and you're just trading a bit of health. Warlock is just such a classic matchup, and it's really the best way to see how this deck performs. Because they'll be draining health. So if you just randomly throw out a Pyroblast when they've got a couple of minions on the board, they've got a few, let's say that 1/1 with Death Rattle to make the 1/1, or the or 1/3, or they've got 3/2. And remember, if they do the 3/2, it deals 3 damage. If you get the save down 20 to 10, they're going to immediately use Reno. Even if your hand is shit, and you've got 3 cards, there's still the theoretical possibility that you could actually do huge damage to them. So they're always going to use Reno there, and that will give you a good chance to put the Alexstrasza down, stuff like that. And then But yeah, you don't really want to be using both ice blocks, but it can. There comes a point in the game where it's a guaranteed win. If you've got an ice block in your hand and you've got one out in the field, and their health is low enough, and they're not going to have enough healing to get back into it, then you're in pretty good shape. And again, like I say, the Archmage can be very, very useful especially after a Hearthstone. It's basically, if you've got the Archmage there, you're going to be able to do absolutely ridiculous damage. A very popular sort of famous combo is Doomsayer Frost Nova. Again, great thing to do. Doomsayer will not. It depends. It really depends if they've got silence. And now, of course, silence, especially with the owl nerf, silence is not something you see so much. Spellbreaker is not a very good card. So there is that. And of course, you don't see stuff like Kez and Mystic so much for the secrets. So there's certain things which are certainly favour this kind of deck in today's kind of game. But yeah, so I think that will probably do it. Pretty cool deck and pretty fun to play. So thanks for watching.